Hey everybody, how you doing? It's that time of the week again. We're actually getting down to the end here. Providing one of probably be like I guess my third to last lecture, I suppose, or around there. So anyway, I have just actually started looking at some of the feature papers. They're looking good so far. And so we're going to talk today about just a little bit more about that because there is now a rewrite that's due. It's the last thing that I needed to post in terms of an assignments. And then, of course, I'll talk about the major assignments. And I want to show this video that I made, me talking, me showing a video of me talking. Makes a lot of sense, right? But I just think that, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I explain things better sometimes than I do other times. So I just felt like it's probably a good idea to maybe like record how to basically go about one way to go about maybe the major assignment. Um, Okay, so let's actually share the screen right now. Um, Sorry, it's taking a long time as usual. You guys should be used to that by now. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Okay, it's not budging. Okay, there we go. Hold on. All right, now I'm getting a pinwheel. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, here's the assignment list. Again, this will be updated on Monday when I post this lecture, but there is now a rewrite that's due. It's due a week from. It's like this one's unlike the original. This one is due in a week. The original was due for had a 2 week deadline. This one is a 1 week deadline. Okay, that'll give you plenty of time for those last 2 weeks to actually work on the major assignment. Um, basically, here's an example of a good one that came in. It's most likely an A. From Amelia. Annalie Sweenpool, a senior of Rutgers University, says she has been frustrated by the fluctuating weather in New Brunswick. See, I mean, it's very basic. It doesn't have to be like necessarily overly dramatic. It doesn't. I'd rather you just kind of keep it simple. But it's actually the substance that's actually providing the drama. Okay. In this particular case, you can just say New Brunswick right here. Okay. But you know, what's going to happen, the idea is like, okay, so what's next, what's going to happen next is because we've had some like monsoons recently in New Brunswick, and location. I know some of you are far away from here, but it's really gone way up and down. And please continue to contribute to that discussion point too, because remember that's also part of class participation. But anyway, you could tell that really the fluctuating weather has really been crazy. We had a period where it was like felt like it was like 70 degrees for like 5 days in a row, and then we went back to like winter season again, and then we turned to monsoon season. And now it's back to cold again. So she she basically talks about how one of the things again it actually like affects the clothing she wears. So she's been frustrated by the fluctuating weather in New Brunswick. I'm sick of weather changing from cold to hot, cold every day. Even though it's if it, so the question is, what's she gonna do? She gonna like you know um I don't know, go outside and like you know and and just start basically wearing like the same clothes every day and say screw it? Is she gonna like do something even harsher that we don't even know about, more dramatic? I don't know. I mean, it's a weather story. That's not really gonna happen. Even though it's nearing April, the daily temperature has not been consistent over the past week. She's gonna drop out of Rutgers. Swimming pool comments that within the same week, one day could have been high temperatures 60 and next day could have been 40. This makes it frustrating for her to choose comfortable clothes that are suitable for the weather. It's annoying that I can walk outside with shorts one day and have to put on a thick jacket the next. Okay. Many other Rutgers students. So then, so basically, you have again, it's not necessarily the most dramatic thing in the world, but this does work because it is bringing somebody through their daily life, the daily frustrations, what they have to do every day, and how the weather can impact just about everything. Okay, and like, what does she come? What sort of like solution is she coming to? What sort of like wall is she running to? This sort of thing. Okay, and then we get to the nut graph, which basically sums everything up and shows that she is not alone. Many other Rutgers students are also affected by the inconsistency of the weather during the spring season, and they're trying to adjust to it. Okay. So then we get to Elena Luce. I'm sorry, there's Amelia, not Elena. Their story. Anyway, actually, this should be last name. Actually, last name. Um, she basically talked about how it's irritating for her to choose an appropriate outfit that allow her to feel comfortable the whole day. So, again, that's a good anecdote. Gets like personal, gets down to earth, that sort of thing. Shows the kind of things people go through. Unpredictably, the weather is characterized in the fluctuation of other weather conditions such as wind and rain. So it's not just the actual. So this is a transition we're having right here. So we basically talk about how first we talk about the temperatures, then we talk about the wind and the rain also being an issue. Now students are affected about that. She opted to bring her jacket when she left for class around midday. She opted not to bring one. The clouds formed rapidly and the wind began to pick up as well. Okay. She regretted leaving her coat home because even a brisk walk in the rainy weather was miserable. Okay. Personal feelings, personal anecdotes, guided by transitions, bringing you from one place to the other. Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, I have another one here too, actually. Um, this one's from Tegan. Actually, I probably should have called this up earlier. This was actually a much shorter anecdotal lead, but I think it works. One week, this actually has a kind of a quirky lead, which is good. One week, Miles Hoffman wore sweaters and was rode the bus. It was cold. It was similar to actually the lead, the example I provided you. The next day it was hot, but Hoffman was still wearing sweaters every day. What's the reason? I know I'm not big on like questions, but here you can get a little stylistic. It's fine. This is my school uniform from now on. I'm gonna win no matter what. Okay. Hoffman is like many other students. So basically, we have this defiant student who's defying the weather, and it's kind of interesting, kind of quirky, a little dramatic. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna stop the bus? Is he gonna start like carrying signs saying "No more cold"? Hoffman is like many students who have confronted conformed to wearing the same type of outfits, battling unpredictably the weather, waking up one day to hot and sunny weather. Should be at least the least of the students' worries. Okay, and then we got like essentially a transition. It's been unbearable for students to adjust last minute. Students have had to attend classes to take different times a day. Um, for others, so basically we transition to some of the first anecdotes that basically talk about like going to class essentially and how that's become like a nightmare because they just don't know what to freaking wear. Okay. All right. So that is the um that's the feature story, the rewrite for which again is due in a week, April 15th. Okay. See it right there. I mean, I know that this is again, this is also the teacher view, but it'll be posted if you show by type at the top of yours. Okay. Okay. All right. So we talked about that. Um, Now next, major assignment. Okay. So obviously this has been posted for a while and, hopefully you got like some feelers out at the very least. This is basically just it's kind of the same story we've been doing, only longer. Okay. But this time you'll write a paper for the proof topic major assignment. The idea here is that reporters to be self-managers and you need to think of ideas on your own. No matter what your topic, here is the description and the story you should focus on. Again, what's timely news events impacting you and people you care about. We just had an earthquake here in New Brunswick. That was interesting. So talk about like events. I mean, actually, I don't know if that's going to factor into your weather features or not, but I was actually literally holding class when that was happening, and I couldn't finish the class because literally everybody was obsessed with this earthquake just rumbled underneath our floor. So, but anyway, that just made me think of the like the weather. Actually, I mean, that could be included too. Just the weather's just been so wild, but basically with the major assignment. It's a bit longer version of that. You can use, and I say this in this video I'm going to show you. You can use an anecdotal lead if you want, much like you can write it in a feature format, or you can write it as straight news. Okay, but it's got to be something that's manageable. No major investigations, please, and just really keep it simple. Even though it's longer, it's not a research paper. So I've had people do this story before, and they think it's a research paper. It's not. It's just a longer story. That's all. It's twice as long as a typical story, and the idea was to pick topics that are meatier and probably would have like more questions than like maybe a simple weather story or something like that. Okay. All right, and again, there's actually also a module for this, which actually repeats a lot of what the entry said. Okay, if I could just call this up right now. Okay, so all right, so yes, well, there's a point made here about factual errors that any factual errors are going to lead to a grade deduction, but this is actually what's on the modules for the assignment. You'll perfect the first draft of a major assignment. The beginning review your professor's notes on the first draft. That's actually like a big thing of this right now because there is no rewrite on this. Okay, so you really need to actually like send me a rough draft ahead of time. That's vital. I would say that it's not required, however, extremely strongly encouraged. Okay, and I show in this video how basically, I worked with somebody on there on the draft they sent, and all you have to do is just send it through an email. That's all. Just send me an email saying, "Can you please look at this?" That's all. Some of you have done that already on some assignments, so just basically, just let's do it again, okay? Um, just please send it to me ahead of time to start thinking about that now, because when it gets a little bit too late, I'm not going to be looking at these. I've had people try to send these to me like 10 o'clock at night that the day it was due or something like that. I mean, I'm going to be asleep. Okay, so anyway, but you just need to basically send this stuff to me. Okay, send this stuff to me ahead of time because there's no rewrite. All right. All right. And if you see the examples, I've actually kind of some of these examples I feel like I need to update. But if you see the ones that I provided, I mean, I have like long quotes in here and stuff like that. I've really kind of like cracked down on them since then. So I apologize if you get confused when you see like these examples and you see these long quotes. But the idea is basically the same. Okay. This is a story that was actually written more like the crime reaction story where there was um no anecdotal lead. But it says students at Rutgers University say they're upset with the housing selection process at Rutgers and that it often feels unfair and hard to get the housing they want or need. Okay, so basically, you have something again that's probably a little meatier, a little more down, like on the ground reporting. Probably going to require more reactions because with the weather, it's like good, bad, or indifferent. You could almost simplify it to that. With housing, there's like so many different like ways you can nuance this. The condition of the housing, um, the wait for the housing, getting parking on top of housing, all those different things. So there's many variables, which is why it requires the story is twice as long. And basically, start with transitions, just like you would in normal stories. Some students say that seniority doesn't guarantee good housing for juniors and seniors, and the lottery is unfair. Peyton Jordan, Rutgers student, says that the lottery system at Rutgers is abysmal compared to the other universities where they prioritize the upperclassmen. I was actually looking at this. I was thinking to myself, it probably would have been better if I actually like got her to maybe explain this a little bit, like with paraphrasing, that sort of thing. She just says basically kind of repeats the same thing in the quote. Juniors have a better chance, blah blah blah. Joiner's details that is disappointed there are no factors added to the randomized lottery systems. That's a good anecdote right there where it's paraphrased. It shows the kind of like perfect example of frustrations that people go through, okay, when they try to deal with housing. Other students, now you have a transition again. Other students are saying that the housing lottery is also unfair when it comes to getting medical accommodations. Interesting. See, that's what I'm saying. There's so many different shades of gray and nuances to these topics that they needs a longer story. It needs not just 500, 800 words, but it needs 800 to 1100. So, because I mean, I wouldn't even have thought of that in terms of housing. So, so, kids. So anyway, so that's the sorry, I'm laughing at somebody's doing. Anyway, so anyway, let me show you how now one thing keep in mind again, two things you should keep in mind really is that um again, rough drafts ahead of time, please. Again, not required, but really, really strongly encouraged. Another thing is that if you need help, because you are remote, I can actually set up discussion points because just about every story I approve was a reaction story. So if you want me to set up a discussion point for what you're doing, please let me know, and then I will do so. Okay. And then we'll work on it from there. Okay. And what I do in this video is I talk about kind of similar to what I did with the feature story, like essentially how to build this type of story and how to like work it together with the notes that are provided. Okay. So let's watch that right now. Okay. Again, remember when this is actually due, this is going to be due. Actually, I meant to put this here. It'll be located right here. So you'll see the major assignment last. This is due on April. This major assignment is due on April 29th. Okay. So let's watch how I went about things here. Okay. And let's go to this mode. All right. Okay. Assignment. Interesting thing about this is that, and let me go to that bit. Actually, stop. Is that, again, this kind of story is like, I'm not necessarily looking for feature story. I'm not looking for really anything. Actually, this is really a story where you really got to like be like your own self manager. Something I talk about all the time in digital media, where you got to basically really kind of like think for yourself here and like come up with your own structure. I may have said this in the past. I just want to change one thing. You can use an anecdotal lead if you want. That's fine. But I want to make sure that actually like people understand that this is not supposed to be like a research paper. Okay, this is still a news story. I've seen a couple of examples that people have sent through where you felt like you needed to have again like a really long kind of like beginning or preamble to it. Um, just so you know, this is actually the week where you actually really start like developing rough drafts and like showing me that. I know I've given you guys assignments to do, and you want to have the weather assignment rewrite done, but this is actually just the last week, so we really got to like get going on this. Okay. Um, and Okay, so right there, this is me talking. Sorry, I forgot that I created this video during one semester in the last week of the semester, so it's not the last week. So just so you know, okay. You gave me the ideas. You gave me good ideas. I think I've approved everybody's idea. A couple of you wanted to actually change. That's fine too, as long as you get it done. I think right now it might be a little bit late to change at this point, because you got a week to do. But again, I'm not looking necessarily for like a major research paper here. Okay. Not trying to make an example of anybody. I actually really appreciate the fact that this student actually sent me his rough draft early. But one thing I want you guys again to avoid is the research paperese. That I tend to think. I mean, this is a news story. Okay, it's a news story. It's just longer, 800 to 1,000 plus words. That's it. Okay, so basically, it's twice as long as what you're typically be doing. And again, don't forget that the weather assignment counts twice as much as the previous assignments did, and then this is going to count 4 times as much. So you really got to make sure that you get it right, and you really want to make sure that you get it to me so I can see it. But what you really got to do though is also remember that we're sticking with the same line here, and that is that we're still writing news stories here. Like this story right here had an incredibly long beginning. Okay, and again, this is just a rough draft. Was sitting a while ago, which I appreciate. Actually, the second draft was much better. So, this year, the summer class directors. This is actually a story about how essentially the summer class summer class schedule changes like all the time or something like that, and it kind of throws people off kilter and that sort of thing. But this actually is not like the data journalism assignment. This actually is essentially what I call them a reaction story. Okay, this if you really wanted, if I really wanted to drive you crazy and have you hate going to Rutgers and everything, I would have you do like a full complete story where you would have to interview like administrators and officials and into all their decision making and everything. But that would be like a really long story and require a lot of research that you don't have the time to do. Okay, I'm sorry, you don't. Okay, so what I'm actually looking to do is actually just do a story that is very specific, and the specific is essentially the students reacting to the changes in the schedule. Okay, that's a good story, and it can get a voice out there that is specific, and also maybe get to the administration themselves. Ideally, I would like to maybe get some administration reaction to respond to the students in the story, but this is much more simple and much better within our time constraints, just to work as a reaction story, students reacting to this. Okay. This year's summer classes for Rutgers students will not be as flexible as they were in private year. Well, first of all, that's actually a little bit of an opinionated statement there. The change in how summer classes are being presented is because Rutgers begun to open up school since it's kind of going into all this explanation about why they're doing it, which I don't really need. It's also coming, is that from the administration? I don't know. There's a lot of setup here. The pandemic coming down, most students will be in person this year. The schedule, the reaction. Now we finally get to the story. This is where the story is right here. Now, this is not an anecdotal lead, okay, that I'm looking for. An anecdotal lead would be, again, focusing on somebody's specific crisis involving the summer class scheduling. But, you know, instead, there's just a lot of setup about why the university is doing this, but we're not getting to the story, which is right here, okay? Which is what I asked them to do. The reaction from students to the release of summer classes schedule has been met with dissatisfaction. A little bit of a passive voice statement. Most students have, oh, that's another cardinal sin. No first person. Just say many students believe it is better for summer class to be online than in person. It could be the first transition right there. Now we get into like another point, flexibility. There's just like tons of setup before we even get to like an individual student. Okay. And no, that's not how we're doing it. I mean, if you want to get to 800 words, you don't do it by padding. Don't do it by like just going to the whole explanation about how summer classes work. This before we even get to a student, it's how many words? It's 176 words. So it's almost 200 words before we even get to like a student. Okay. And this is actually about students and the reaction. If you want to get it to 800 words, just interview more students, you know, interview 7, 8, you know, and you'll get their individual experiences, you know, that's all. You have to get more substance as opposed to more style. Okay. More reporting. That's all. And I said this to you guys, I think earlier in the semester, and that is, again, like if you ever do go into this field, you ever get asked the question, are you a better reporter than a writer? Okay. You always want to say reporter because the substance is what carries the day. That Guy Talese story I showed you before was a feature story, very stylistic, the whole thing. But he actually worked to get that information. There was substance in that story. It wasn't just style. He actually basically like not stalked, but basically like, you know, he couldn't interview Frank Sinatra, first of all. He had to basically interview everybody around him, you know? So that requires work. That means interviewing, getting people, getting information from people, as much information you can from people to paint pictures within the whole story, you know, to paint scenes, to tell anecdotes, that sort of thing. And you just build that into a larger story, okay? So then, you know, the rest of the story actually does deal with the students and their reactions, okay? Which is good, okay? But it didn't need all that setup, okay? All right. Let me get out of here. So anyway, let me like go into some of your ideas that you guys had to show how this can be approached. Those of you who live, I guess, China right now, a bunch of you actually talked about this accident, I guess, that had happened, and involving a plane. I guess it was in China. I guess that's horrible. I'm very sorry to hear that. Oh, and I'm on the wrong spot. And I just wanted to basically say that, like, that's a fine. It's horrible tragedy, but I mean, it's a good story to do. But what I suggested was actually like just basically, you know, just sticking with the, you know, maybe like the reaction or the impact that this has had on people. Okay, so in case you're wondering, like, why? Oh my God, what happened there? I had to change locations because the cord was over here and I was running out of battery. So there was it. That boy, he's synchronous one, right? All right. So
let me actually talk about that. Anyway, so there was this idea that actually approved a bunch of people. If you lived in China, that had this idea right about the plane crash, and I basically said that, okay, so again, like you don't necessarily want to write about the plane crash happened. You want to get into maybe the nitty gritty of that, investigative piece, that sort of thing. Everything about journalism. Why am I asking people to like shy away from that? I mean, it's not like I'm trying to teach people how to be like shy away from stories or something. I'm trying to teach people how like to do things that they're able to do, to understand, first of all, the importance of like following instructions. Second of all is the importance of time management. And third of all is basically not overshooting or undershooting. Okay, basically knowing what you can do within the time frame allowed. Because one thing you're going to notice if you do stick with journalism classes is that it's going to be a lot more about actual, again, self-management, coming up with your own ideas, and when you come up with your own ideas, you got to be able to understand, well, you got to do what you can only do. Okay. This section was from John Wynn. My topic of this assignment is the air crash that happened on March 23rd, 2022 in China. It caused cuts off 132 people died. There are thousands of airplanes that fly every day. It's important transportation, blah, blah, blah. So what I said was, this can work, but you got to make this about today. What is the latest? Who's reacting? But really, it's about this: who is reacting. Okay. So what I suggested to everybody was basically just this: that you should just get reaction from people that basically like might feel personally affected by this. I mean, it's not been, maybe I'm off kilter or something, but I'm old enough to remember when like plane crashes like this, unfortunately, happened to seem like every other month. And I like to think that air travel has actually improved a lot since then. And I mean, a lot of people were afraid to go up in the sky, but now, I mean, you haven't really heard about this kind of thing, and it does happen. It's like so shocking. So what I would like to see is like, actually, I'm just going to use my little whiteboard here. Okay. Um, basically, you would have a lead that would basically address, obviously, the China plane crash, but it's not necessarily about, think about the sliver of the angle you got to go with here. It's not about the China plane crash itself, but maybe like you focus on one specific group. Maybe it's like people in whatever town are still feeling upset about, that's still, are still shocked even, are still the plane crash that killed 32 people in China. I mean, you're going to submit this try May 2nd, so we'll just say March, okay? I mean, something as simple as that, I would have to think that if there was something that happened, let's say, even in California, which is 3,000 miles from me, there's a plane crash like that, I would think I could find 8 people in New Jersey, which is 3,000 miles away, who would still be upset about this because it happens so infrequently and it's so shocking, and it kind of raises questions, not just among like transportation officials or people like that, but the people want to know, am I able to fly safely? A lot of people are like worried now going up in the air because now they just got rid of the mask mandate, basically. And I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that because I guess the Biden administration here is going to try to reimpose it. But a lot of people are just afraid to go up in the air because they're afraid to get COVID. But to add this, I mean, actually, I have to be honest with you. You might even be able to get 8 people in New Jersey to react to this China crash, because to hear about this happening ever it's again, when like back in the 70s and 1980s, it's so much more common. It's horrible that, but happen now, even anywhere. It's like, wow, I would probably react to that. My God, what's going on here? How did it happen? You know, so I mean, so we're already dealing with the crisis in the skies of people like fearing about getting sick, but also be worried about like maybe a plane actually like falling out of the sky. It's horrible. Something like that happened around 9/11. It was actually a plane that crashed like probably a couple weeks after 9/11, I think it was. It crashed in the Rockaways, New York City. It was horrible. And again, that raised the whole question of, again, terrorism. So that's another thing that's obviously been on people's minds for a very long time. Is that an issue? I don't know. Obviously, this story probably would include some background, but not too much. You want to get people familiar with what happened, but you have to kind of make that as like a secondary information. It's more about the people reacting. So I don't know. I'm just going to John Brown. You get maybe, or actually, I'm sorry. Get a transition. Say some people say they're worried about the safety of air travel. So again, it's all about the reaction and what's going through people's minds right now. So you break this into transitions. John Brown said he hasn't heard of tragedy like this in a while. He's wondering if it's safe to fly anymore. And then maybe like into his own personal experience, maybe Brown uses air travel for his job. Now he's thinking, I don't know, about using a car service or something, or a bus. See, anecdotal information. See, and then what you do is just kind of pile these together. This is just like every other story we've been doing, right? Just that it's longer. And we go one person at a time, and then maybe a quote. And then we use another transition. Maybe we use the one I just used, okay? Others say, they already have to about safety, their health safety, this would be in America, I guess, now that the mask mandate has been eliminated for the time being. This just compounds the problem, they say. See, another transition, right? And then you basically have Fred Jones said he's almost say something. He's just going to avoid planes altogether. Of course, this could also be a mixed reaction story. Others say that while the incident was horrible, this plane travel still the safest kind of transportation. And Peters said, she feels completely safe while in a plane, and then maybe like she'll put on a movie, relieve her jitters. That's what helps me at least. I still feel that way, like in the plane, right? So you can see again, we're going in the whole same pattern, right? We've got lead, transition, okay, negative, and quote, and then transition, anecdote, okay, voila, right there. Okay, so it basically follows the same pattern we followed before. Okay, now again, if you wanted to do something like maybe an anecdotal lead, I'm going to go back into the assignment, make sure that I think I had a line in there basically saying that no, just straight leads. I'm going to change that. Okay, but anecdotal lead would be fine if you want to do something like that. You want to just take like an anecdote, you take it, from here, you would take it from something you would normally put in the middle of the story, maybe put it at the top, and then basically, then you would have something like, you know, this would become a nut graph. Jones is among many still shocked plane crash, and it's made them rethink. Of course, there's about a couple of opinions here, but whatever. The whole conspiration, whatever. Using the whole name. Okay. So this would be like a, so either Fred Jones said he's going to go, just going to avoid planes altogether. After the, then you want to point a little context here, after the China plane. Actually, I accidentally looked up an anecdote here. I'm sorry, transition. Altogether, he was already, Amy will apply a little more. He was already worried going up in a plane, getting all the descriptions, sweating as
Jesus.
he holds the handles, the armrest of the plane takes off. Okay, so then you got these teases up here, and then you go into a nut graph. Okay. All right, so that's that story. So again, we're kind of following the same pattern we've done before. Just again, it's just long. If you want more information, you interview more people. That's it. Or maybe you just get deeper information from people. You have them tell more of their story. Okay.
Okay. I'm back. All right, so that's that with the I'll talk more about the major assignment as we head into these final weeks here. Then again, deal with the end of the month. So again, like I said, I cut in the middle that sometimes I guess some of that is a little dated. I apologize. I guess I have to update this. Let's talk about things like mask mandate now that ended and all that stuff. So, but the same principles apply. And just trying to basically work with me in the next couple weeks and getting the rough drafts to me would be very much appreciative. Okay. And of course, you have the rewrite for the feature assignment due. Don't forget that these last two assignments count a lot more. So, this is important. So let's get finished. Let's finish the semester well. Thanks very much, everybody, and I will be talking to you.